It's time for Twit. This Week in Tech, Rene, Ritchie from iMore is here. Ed Bott from ZDNet, Jason Hiner from Tech Republic. We'll talk about, of course, the iPad or whatever it is, Apple event coming up on Tuesday, the biggest software purchase in the history of technology, and all the president's iPhones. It's all coming up next on Twit.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit. This Week in Tech, episode 690, recorded Sunday, October 28th, 2018. All the president's phones. This Week in Tech is brought to you by WordPress. Reach more customers when you build your business website at WordPress.com. Plans start at just $4 a month, and you'll get 15% off any new plan at WordPress.com/twit. And by Audible. Start a 30-day trial, and your first audiobook is free. Visit audible.com/twit or text TWIT to 500-500. And by Betterment, the investing tool for those who refuse to settle for average investing. Sign up today at betterment.com/twit and get up to 1 year managed free. And by Eero. Never think about Wi-Fi again when you can have brilliant, hyper-fast, super simple Wi-Fi with Eero. And now, get total network protection with Eero Plus. Visit Eero.com/twit and get $100 off the Eero base unit, 2 beacons package, and 1 year of Eero Plus. All you have to do is enter the code TWIT at checkout. It's time for Twit, This Week in Tech, the show where we talk about the week's tech news. The panel has assembled. Rene Ritchie, he's moonlighting from his role at MacBreak Weekly, also always in charge at imore.com and the host of Vector on the iMore network. Hello, Rene. Nice to see you on a Sunday.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I wasn't going to be here on Tuesday, Leo, so I felt I owed you.
Thank you.
I had to make good.
You got something going on Tuesday?
I'm going to be in Brooklyn for some reason. Just a little thing.
We'll talk about that in a sec. Also with us, Ed Bott, my old friend from the Bott Report at ZDNet, goes all the way back to, we were just talking about this, the Cobb Group, PC World, and PC Computing.
Names that don't exist.
They're all gone now,
that don't
baby.
Exist anymore.
Wow. Someday, you know.
Good to be back, Leo.
Yeah, it's great to see you. And all the way to the right side of the table, it's Jason Hiner, editor-in-chief at Tech Republic, CBS Interactive. Hi, Jason.
Hey, always good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Nice to see you. Jason's been growing a soul patch for Movember. It's nice. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I told him he really needs a pork pie hat, though, to go with that. It would really look good. I'm
just
telling
enough
you.
fear to think with.
Yeah.
Just enough.
That's right. Yeah, just,
A little something. So Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, Apple's going to be at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. Rene apparently got an invite.
One of 370 different invites.
Is that how many there were total?
Well, there's over 400, but I think only 370 have gone out to the press so far.
So there's still chance for me?
Well, I think the rest might just be in the venue because they've already put up the windows and they're putting up the. Yeah.
This is well, we don't know, but what did they say? There's more in the making or something like that?
Yeah. And we're figuring iPads and Macs.
iPads. And how serious are we figuring Macs? iPads for sure.
I think Macs really seriously. The new Mac Mini, the replacement for the MacBook Air. I don't think they'll even hint at the Mac Pro. I think they've learned their lesson about pre-announcing things before they ship. Hopefully, but the new Mac Mini and the Coffee Lake. Every time I go to sleep, Leo, I wake up and there's a new lake in the Intel family. But the Coffee Lake, not Coffee Lake revision or refresh, but the Coffee Lake versions of the iMac, and I forget what Xeon is on now. It was Skylake, so maybe now it's Xeon Kaby Lake.
Somebody asked me on the radio show, said I have a pretty recent computer. It's 8th generation Intel. That's recent. I said, well, it depends which generation, 8th generation.
I know it's so confusing because there's Kaby Lake refresh, Coffee Lake, and now they announced Coffee Lake refresh. Cow. But it hasn't shipped. I mean, it's Intel in 2018.
I've just been handed my invitation. I'm so excited. Handmade with magic markers, but it looks like a 4-year-old. Yeah, that's the best I can hope for. So good. We'll look forward to that. We're going to live stream it 7 a.m.
Awesome.
Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern time.
You got to get up early this time, Leo.
1300 UTC. Yeah, really early. Megan Maroney and I will watch the live stream and comment on it. And then you won't be here for Mac Break Weekly, but we'll have an Mac. And I guess Andy's getting to go. He said he got an invite too. So
awesome. Nice. I think it's going to be like March where they have like extracurricular activities at the venue afterwards.
They had a school event for the inexpensive iPad, the iPad for Education. And you had to go to class. You got like a class.
Yeah, they were real educators there, and they were teaching us Swift playgrounds and pages. And then they had labs where you could like do Swift and fly a drone and dissect a frog in AR and all these things that we Could you say, hey, I got a file. I'll see you later. Could you just like I mean, a lot of people just go to these events and then they leave and like they go to the events, they get the hands on, they post their video, they get on the plane, they fly to the next event. But for good or for ill, I really only cover the Apple beat, so I get to stay there for the long haul.
You get to stay the whole time. No other events for you to go to. Tomorrow will be the OnePlus event for their 6T.
Yeah.
They had to move it. Because the last thing you want to do is do anything on Apple Day.
Yeah. They got bigfooted.
They got, really stomped. So we'll have new phones to talk about this week.
It won't stop this month, Leo. Like September and October has just been one thing after another.
It's just crazy. I guess there's nothing more to say about that. Maybe next week there'll be something to say about it. I feel, am I jaded? I'm getting jaded.
No, don't be jaded. We're optimistic, Leo. We have hopes for the new technology. Yes. We're getting rid of bezels. We're finally murdering all the bezels. What's not to love about that?
Bye bezels. I actually
they were offensive. They deserve to die.
I got my 10R on Friday, and I do like it quite a bit, even though it has a little bit of a bezel. People are saying, oh, it's got too much bezel. It's got a little slim little bezel. Oh, it's too much bezel.
LCD backlight is still hard.
I like it. I think it's nice. It's the best battery life of any iPhone.
Yeah.
Right?
It's got a forgivable bezel. Very forgivable.
I think it's highly forgivable. I think it's pretty. Although, once again, they love the colors. The product red is gorgeous. But you got to put it in a case. So what does it matter?
Well, but Apple didn't give you a case this time, Leo. So you got to go.
No, they have a. Aren't they doing like a plastic?
They are, but no, they're not. No one can find them. They're MIA, so everyone has to buy an OtterBox case like an animal right now.
I'm just gonna carry it naked and hope I don't drop it because it's glass and it's slippery and it'll be easy to. I'm surprised I haven't broken it already.
It's not like I remember the Nexus 4. My boss and I put them in the middle of conference tables at CES, and by the end of the meeting, they were both on the floor. It's not quite that slippery, but it's really close.
It's pretty darn, yeah. All right. We all decided we don't want to talk about the great tragedies in the world today, although there is some complicity at Twitter. There is a site that was supposed to be the freedom of speech conservative site called Gab that pretty much everybody, Azure pulled their subscription, the credit cards say you can't use it anymore to pay for it. Gab was where the anti-Semitic rantings of a lunatic were featured. I guess
their hosting company shut them down. Also, Joyent. So they'll be leaving Joyent on Monday, and their chief technology officer quit this morning.
Good. Good. Of course, the founders said it was the lying mainstream media's fault. So there's that.
Damn human decency.
Jeez. There's nothing more to say except send our condolences and love and those much-needed thoughts and prayers to everybody involved.
And the words "never again" really have tremendous meaning this week.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Tim Cook says it's all the fault of the data industrial complex, as long as we're talking Apple. Tim was invited to speak at the 40th International Conference of Data Protection and Privacy Commissioners, the jauntily named ICD-PPC, which is in Brussels. He gave the keynote and took it as an opportunity to say that the weaponization of big data is a problem and that artificial intelligence is really the bad actor. For artificial intelligence to be truly smart, it must respect human values, including privacy. If we get this wrong, the dangers are profound. Somebody said, though, well, easy enough for Tim to, take pot shots at Google, which is clearly what this is, but he's also letting China, do whatever it wants with Apple servers on the iCloud. So it is a point to be made that you can say all this, but if you're letting China have access to iCloud data, I don't know if you're really supporting privacy.
The interesting thing there is that he indicated there might be a shift in policy. So previously, with iOS 7, Apple went all in on fail secure. You could barely get into anything, and if you lost your recovery number, that was it. Apple could not help you. And then they got a lot of pushback because we talked about this previously. Some people, they don't care if anyone else gets their photos. You just better not lose their photos. That's the most important thing to them. And so Apple changed their policy, and now they have fail secure for anything that's real time and fail safe for anything that's in the backup. And he indicated in that speech, or I think in the comments following that speech, that Apple's reevaluating that, and that maybe given the climate now, it'll be better to go to fail secure everywhere, even if that means that they can't necessarily help somebody if they lose their access password or code or recovery digits or whatever.
Alex Stamos, who is the former Facebook Chief Information Security Officer, says, I agree with almost everything Tim Cook said in his privacy speech today, which is why it's so sad to see the media credulously covering his statement without the context of Apple's action in China. Apple uses hardware-rooted DRM to deny Chinese users the ability to install the VPN and E2E messaging apps like Signal that would allow them to avoid pervasive censorship and surveillance. Apple moved iCloud data into a PRC-controlled joint venture with unclear impacts. But he also points out China's an ethical blind spot for many in tech. We ignore the working conditions under which our beautiful devices are made, the censorship and surveillance necessary to ship apps there, the environmental externalities of coal-powered Chinese Bitcoin farms. Cook is right. The U.S. needs a strong privacy law and privacy regulator, but Apple needs to come clean on how iCloud works in China.
I mean, that's
yes, and Google already went through this dance a few years ago, going into China and then exiting China for an extended period of time, and as I think everyone in that entire $1 trillion cohort has said along the way, China is this puzzle that there's no easy answer to. They represent such a huge part of the world that you can't ignore them. You can't just say, well, if you won't play by our rules, then we'll just stay out of your market, because they're just too huge. They're just too huge of a market. It's one of those conundrums that we need to be wrestling with, and it's really good that we're having these conversations that we should have been having years and years ago.
Do you think, though, that Apple should, I hope you're right, Rene, that Apple's planning on doing something to step back a little bit, and that Google should not be going back into China with censored search, Ed? I mean, should American companies, you just pointed out how big a market is, turn their back on it?
I don't know. There's if you don't go into those markets, then you're denying billions of people access to transformative technology. If you do go into those markets under the terms that are being dictated by an increasingly autocratic regime, then you're complicit in things that are going to happen to the citizens of that country. So, neither one of those things sounds like a good answer.
Yes.
It can't be a binary question.
Yeah.
Jason,
isolation.
Go ahead, Jason, and then Rene.
Yep. Yeah, it's always the question, right? Like, what will further the goals of the world, the better answer for the global community, right? Is it isolation when people are doing things that are regressive in human rights to their citizens, to other countries in some cases? Is it better to isolate them? Is it better to make them part of, bring them into the global community and then put over time, naturally pressure gets put on them, right? That's the tactic that the Olympics takes, is like, it's better to have them at the table than to have them off in their own room doing whatever they want, right, to their people. So it's playing out in tech, because tech is a bigger part of the world and is becoming a bigger and bigger part of the world. I don't think it's possible for us at this point to separate or completely isolate China. All of these big tech companies are so connected to them. The question now is just sort of like, how much do we give them a seat at the table versus how much do we, have this sort of carrot and stick? Whereas, like, if you become, if you sort of do things that share our values, then we give you more. And if you don't, we pull back. It's all a matter of degrees. Like, there's no complete answer to completely isolate China. And there probably never will be, not in the future, in the foreseeable future for now.
Rene?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to add is that, as far as I know, there's not too many differences in the way that Apple handles iCloud in China as opposed to outside China. The real-time stuff is all end-to-end encrypted, and nobody has the keys to that, not even Apple. The backup stuff is the same as it is in the U.S. The U.S. government can and has gone in and demanded the data, and China can go in and demand that data. Right. The only difference is, inside America, we look at China as scary, where inside China, they're like, we don't want our citizens' data to be stored on American servers. Right. You're going to spy on us. We don't trust you. And France is wanting repatriation, and other countries are wanting data repatriation, which is why we have the Cloud Act. It's becoming an increasing problem. And if those companies, Apple's got a long-standing policy of always being engaged. They truly believe they cannot affect change if they don't stay engaged. And there's going to be pretty much every country or union in the world is going to want their data localized at some point. So I think it's a bigger question. I mean, Microsoft was wrestling with it. Apple is wrestling with it. Google is off and on with it. But it's going to have to be answered. And it can't be just, like, I'm a Canadian and I necessarily don't want my data stored in the U.S., quite frankly, anymore. Right. So, I don't know what we're all going to do. Right.
There's another data point to toss in there, which is Twitter. And Twitter, let's think back to the glorious Arab Spring, where it seemed like Twitter was doing an amazing job of mobilizing the forces of the people to rise up and demand democracy in their countries. And as we learned, I think just in the last week or two, that a lot of that data was being siphoned away, that a Twitter employee had actually been recruited by, like, the Saudi intelligence services to hand over the names and identifying details of people who were running anonymous or pseudonymous accounts that were involved in actions that were against the state, and so so at the time, all of the talk of Twitter was, look what a force for good Twitter is being here, and now, years later, with the benefit of hindsight, we look back on this and say, how many people were arrested, imprisoned, and possibly executed as the result of all of that stuff. It really, Rene is right. Encryption for a lot of this stuff is really crucial, but there's more to it than that. Identity is as important as anything, because even if they can't see the content of what you're doing, if they can see the metadata, or if they can see your account information and associate that with communications between point A and point B, you can get in a lot of trouble.
It's really been a terrible week for Silicon Valley.
Yeah,
in so many respects. There's, of course, the debate over the Pentagon's $10 billion Jedi cloud contract. Google said, well, we're not going to bid on it. Amazon is likely to get it. Amazon employees have signed petitions saying Amazon shouldn't be selling face recognition tech to police. Many employees say Amazon shouldn't be bidding on this cloud contract. Jeff Bezos said, I'm happy to bid on this contract. And, in a way, I can't exactly, he says, sometimes one of the jobs of senior leadership is to make the right decision even when it's unpopular. if big tech companies are going to turn their back on the U.S. Department of Defense, this country is going to be in trouble. And actually, I thought that was a compelling argument. So this stuff is so tough. And of course, Silicon Valley's under a microscope. Everybody's looking at what Silicon Valley does. And I honestly feel like there's almost nothing these big companies can do that's going to not put them under further scrutiny. Take the contract or not.
Tech's become so central to everything we do, right?
Yeah, it's part of the mainstream now, isn't it? Yeah.
It is intrinsic in every part of business, and every part of government, and every part of healthcare. And it's become that way, so quickly, almost overnight, right? In a matter of decades. I mean, all of us obviously have been talking about this story for a long time, knew it was coming, have seen parts of it happen, but we're at the point where it has gotten mission critical everywhere and part of everything. And so it's now there are problems, and the tech industry has been so focused on innovation specifically for the past several decades, 3 or 4 decades, so little on privacy, so little on security, and now while things are better and there's more attention to those things in the last, say, 5 years, there's still a lot of things out there that are not up to snuff. And we're paying the price for it. We have a huge technical debt to pay in cybersecurity and privacy, and it's going to take decades to get it right, because it's taken that long to build all of these things so that those are not a natural part of an intrinsic part of the world that we built with technology.
It's funny, Ed and I guess you too, Jason and Rene, have been covering this for so long. And when I first started covering tech, it was just a narrow slice of the economy. It was a narrow slice of the world. And these decisions didn't carry much weight. All of a sudden, because it's so important, these decisions carry huge weight. And it's hard to know what's right.
And they were different companies, right? They were Oracle. They weren't Amazon. They weren't the company you bought from that was making these systems. It was companies you maybe had a parent or uncle who worked for.
Right.
Well, and there's another thing too to add. I agree completely with what Jason said, and I will add that right now most of the technical and ethical decisions are being made by engineers in Silicon Valley, even though there's a huge political component to them. And at least in the Western world, the two largest powers, the United States and the United Kingdom, are basically so consumed with self-destructive internal problems that nobody is offering the slightest bit of leadership on these issues. Probably the one force in the Western economies that's offering anything there is Germany. And the reason that Germany is doing that is because of the unfortunate history that they have from, both from the Nazi times, but also in, more recently from East Germany, where they've baked privacy into their constitution, into their government, and into their into their culture. And even there, there's a struggle to still come to terms with a lot of the technical decisions that are happening there. So when you have this huge interlocking problem of technology and politics, and yet the political leadership is almost completely lacking on this, and that fundamentally is the problem, I think.
It's true. It's why you do have to admire. Oh, sorry, Rene. Sorry, just one quick thing. You do have to admire, Tim Cook and his remarks. Where we kind of started this conversation. It is self-serving. Apple has played its hand where it's not being Amazon or Facebook or Google and making all of this money off of data, which is, a gold mine. And ultimately, all of those companies will eclipse Apple in monetarily and in market share and those things because of that. The writing is on the wall. But where Apple has put its its stake in the ground is on privacy. It doesn't have the data operations that the other companies have, and it's put its stake in the ground with its products there. So it is self-serving, but still you have to admire Tim Cook for showing some leadership, because we have, to Ed's point, a huge vacuum in leadership on these things, and we need it in the public world as well as the private world.
Well, here's a site you might enjoy. I don't know. I'm going to have to say an adult word to say this site's URL. We can bloop it. Off Google.de. Don't let Google take over Berlin. Google plans to implant a Google campus in Kreuzberg, Berlin. We, as a decentralized network of people, want to keep our lives and spaces free from this law and tax evading company that's building a dystopian future. This campaign succeeded.
More on our wiki.
More on our wiki. This campaign succeeded. Google has decided not to open that.
It's super interesting to me, because we can't all afford everything. We want a lot of things, but we can't all afford them. But we're all data billionaires. We're all equally data rich. It's the great equalizer, and we can get all these data subsidized products, but we have different expectations. Like, we know we give Google our selfies, and it gives us amazing Google photos, but we probably don't think about them using that for military drone strikes. And when we hear that, it's not the deal we feel like we signed up for. Our expectations get suddenly out of whack, or we hear with Amazon and law enforcement, and it's going to, I think, have to result in a lot more disclosure and a lot more sort of sobering of our community, because there really is no free. We are giving them our selfies, and they're going to monetize that some way.
To paraphrase, or actually not, to quote Charles Dickens, it's the best of times. It's the worst of times.
It really, really is.
It's a really interesting mix, and it's a very challenging one. We'll take a break and talk about the biggest software acquisition in history, which just broke hours ago. And it's kind of a stunner, and you guys are going to have to explain to me what's going on here. But first, a word from WordPress. If you don't have a website, you ought to make one. I think it's increasingly obvious that merely existing on social media, having a Facebook page or a Twitter feed is not enough. Even if you're a teenager in high school, you ought to create a website, because that's what people will find when they search your name, and you want to control that. It's even more important if you're in business, and the easiest, best way, most affordable way to create a great website is with WordPress.com. I just got a little notice in my WordPress app that I am celebrating my 12th anniversary with WordPress.com. It wasn't the beginning of my blog. I started with content management systems going back, I think, to 2001, all sorts of different ones, but I finally settled on the best, WordPress. I'm not alone. 31% of all websites in the world now run on 32 just went up. It's like the tote board at the telethon. It's now 32% of the internet. We're going to get to a third of the internet by hook or by crook. Pretty impressive, right? Matt Mullenweg, the guy who created WordPress, had a vision. He wanted to make it easy for you to make a website, and that vision has come to life at WordPress.com. It's so your vision can come to life. There are no limits at WordPress.com. You can create the ultimate online hub that's yours, your ethos, your style, and you own it. You can upload video, images, audio, all your text. It's on your site. You can get it in, you can get it out. It's yours. It's not sitting anywhere else. You could choose from hundreds of designs, so it'll look exactly how you want with the best engineering built in. And WordPress is hassle-free. It takes care of the hosting, the security, the software updates. You can focus on your site. And now I have to say, when I started using Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, I stopped posting on my blog, and that was a mistake. And now I'm back and posting, because that's where I live on the internet. That's where you live on the internet. Grow your audience, reach new customers, built-in search engine optimization, social media sharing, so you can get other people to talk about your site on their Facebook and Twitter. Don't get rid of your Facebook and Twitter, but you got to have something to link back to, and that's your WordPress site. And I love the WordPress app on iOS and Android. When we were traveling, that was how I posted blog posts, checked comments, approved comments, looked at my analytics, my stats. Great app. Launch your website with confidence, knowing you can always get help 24/7 from a support team that's friendly, nice, and smart. Plans start at just $4 a month. Find out why 32% of every website in the world runs on WordPress, including some of the biggest publishers in the world. We've got a deal, too, 15% off any new plan purchase, but you have to go to wordpress.com/twit. wordpress.com/twit. Create your new website. Put down your flag, plant your flag on the internet. wordpress.com/twit. Thank him so much. Thank you, Matt, and WordPress and Automatic and all the team there. For 12 years, I've been happy at wordpress.com/twit.
So glad you're blogging again, Leo.
It's so much fun, and I actually instead, because I don't do Instagram, so instead of putting a thing on Instagram, I put it there. And the nice thing about that is, if you want to see my pictures, you know where to go, leolaporte.com. Because if you put them on Instagram, sometimes you see them, sometimes you don't.
And it's yours. You own it.
I own it. I can get those. Yep. I have to say, if you go back in my blog, because I've moved around, there are big holes in it. There's all the text survived import and export, but a lot of the images were stored. Remember Vox? I had stuff stored on TypePress on Vox.
I remember when you were complaining about this, that
I couldn't get it out.
Last time I was on, that, but also the fact that you had to go to secure HTTP.
Oh, that was easy on WordPress. It's just a checkbox.
Right. It's just a checkbox. But I think, but to the point, I deleted. I had a blog, that from 2000 to probably 2012, 2013 or so. I finally just deleted everything. There was so much there that was just, there's 5% of it was stuff that I really wish I still had. Actually, I do have it in a backup somewhere, but I wish I still had. But the other 95% of it was, it was about software and products and a lot of hands-on stuff that it's simply about dead products, and it just.
I wouldn't delete anything. I mean, first of all, there's plenty of room on the internet, Ed. We're not running out yet. I'm just looking. This is my first WordPress post is 28 February 2001. Yeah. And it's so fun. I mean, you're right. Some of it's nuts. Like, hey, this meeting is ending. Yay, lunch. This is pre-Twitter, folks. But then there's also, I think things that are, to me, of interest, maybe not anybody else, but it's kind of like keeping a journal, right? Yep, right. And your old stuff's there. I just like having it. I wish some of the pictures I'd posted were still there. Do you remember Moblogging? Remember that? There was textamerica.com. Remember that? So this was early days of camera phones, maybe 2002 or 3. And I posted hundreds of pictures, pre-Instagram, way, on a site called Text America, and it just disappeared. It was called Moblogging. Am I dreaming this? You remember that?
I remember Moblogging.
You can
I'm still
Google
missing
it,
Jaiku.
Jaiku. I miss Jaiku. I loved Jaiku. Yeah. No, all the Text America stuff disappeared. It's all gone.
Yep. All the Pounce stuff is gone. Yeah. So much stuff.
I wish some of these pictures
I think a lot of the problem of it back then, and a lot of the appeal of the networks that we have available to us today are that, it started with Blogger, where it was just like, just go sign up and they'll take care of all the back end stuff. But, I remember for a decade or so, I was, a webmaster and an IT guy, and I had to learn how to kick a server that was 2,000 miles away, right? And that was valuable IT stuff to learn, but there just comes a point it's exhausting.
It is exhausting. For a long time, this was self-hosted WordPress, and that killed my productivity. Just killed it. This is here's one from 2001. Tomorrow morning on Tech TV, we're doing a roundtable celebrating the 10th anniversary of Linux. So here we are, a little bit later, 17 years later, and I am blown away by this headline.
Yeah.
Red Hat has been acquired by IBM. By the way, Red Hat was one of the early Linuxes I used. I used Mandrake and then Red Hat for $34 billion, making it's the biggest acquisition IBM's ever made. It's the third biggest tech acquisition of all time. Yeah, bigger even than Microsoft buying LinkedIn. Is Red Hat worth $34 $4 billion.
At least it's not based on user count, Leo. That's one of the things I'm grateful for.
It's kind of stunning. I mean, the only bigger ones are Dell buying EMC. That was last year. And semiconductor Avago Technologies buys and renames itself Broadcom and $37 billion.
Well, AOL Time Warner, if you count that, right?
How much was that?
If you sort of put that aside.
That was $165 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah. $241 billion adjusted for inflation. So that's a lot bigger. But that was the number 2 acquisition of all time. That was misguided, right?
Yeah. So in the press release, I read the press release today, and like you, I'm still trying to figure it out. And there's folks at ZDNet who are who probably have already posted something on this, and I need to go read it. Stephen J. Von Nichols, I would expect, would be if he doesn't have a post up there yet, he will soon. But one of the things that they said in their press release was hybrid cloud. I think hybrid cloud. That's their approach to it. And Red Hat has been an enterprise services company for quite a while. They're not a Linux. Yeah. They're not a Linux distro. They have 12,000 employees, I think.
Whoa. However, they were valued at the last I saw $20 billion.
Yeah.
So this is a significant premium.
But we just announced that we'll sell Fedora we'll sell the Twitch Fedora instance for like $34 million if anyone's interested.
Wow.
Just put that out there.
I'll take it. Yeah. Red Hat missed its most recent revenue estimates. Company's subscription revenue 20% of year-over-year growth to $722 million. So that's a lot of money for a free operating system. But they think they need this to compete, right? They think that the cloud is definitely the cloud services of the future, and Amazon and other companies are running away with them, and IBM's IBM, and they need one of how Ed figured out how to kick the server. They think Red Hat's going to help kick them into the cloud era. Yeah, this is what Jeannie Rometty, the CEO, said. The acquisition of Red Hat is a game changer. It changes everything about the cloud market. IBM will become the world's #1 hybrid cloud provider, offering companies the only open cloud solution. That's cloud 4 times in one sense. That will unlock the full value of the cloud for their businesses. I guess it's all
open,
about
right. Open is big now too.
Cloud. Well, cloud at Microsoft, I mean, I thought the moon had turned blue when Microsoft announced they were going to put Linux on Azure.
Yeah. And they bought GitHub.
And then they bought GitHub. By the way, that closed this week also. It's an interesting week for open source, isn't it?
AIX must be crying quietly in a closet somewhere.
AIX, Apple's Unix. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, seriously, anybody who is still on the, who is still quoting Steve Ballmer saying that, open source is communism or, whatever that stupid thing he said way back when was, he
said Linux was a cancer.
Linux was a cancer. That's right. And it was Bill Gates who said that open source is communism. But that was a long, long time ago in a galaxy far away. And I mean, anyone who's been paying attention, it has been at least 5 years that Microsoft has been unequivocally committing to open source projects. They just open sourced their patents for Android.
Like a complete DNA infusion.
They had been making a significant amount of money over the years. I mean, $1 billion a year from Samsung alone on their patent licensing for those. So giving that up was, a real demonstration of a commitment to this, this open source stuff.
Yeah, it feels like companies want to keep proprietary what makes them money, and then open source everything that makes their competition money. That seems like the winning strategy.
Totally. It's kind of like in the Microsoft thing is kind of like, and it is relevant to the IBM Red Hat story. It's like in the new Star Trek Discovery, there's the guy who's a Starfleet officer who's actually a Klingon underneath. Yep. But so that's kind of like what it's like, a complete DNA infusion. Today's Microsoft is essentially a Linux company, especially on the server, because All of this stuff is the backbone of the internet. It's the backbone of the enterprise. And, these tools and open source technology and software runs the world. And so for IBM, as they said, you hit the nail on the head, Leo, like they mentioned cloud 4 times in the one sentence. This is all about them trying to compete and get a leg up any way they can against Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. Amazon and Microsoft have really been kind of running away, especially Amazon, with the cloud market. Google's playing catch up. They've been trying to use price and AI, machine learning, as their way to pick off some of these cloud deals. And they have been somewhat successful, but still, Amazon's the 800-pound gorilla. Microsoft is the #1 challenger. Google's trying to, elbow its way in, and IBM has been trying unsuccessfly to sort of be the fourth wheel there. Right. And they needed something like this to help them push forward. And Red Hat is interesting because they've been rumored to have been an acquisition target of Oracle, of Microsoft, of Google especially, and now it's happened with IBM. And so they are a huge company, and they, to Ed's point earlier, they are very much a cloud services IT integrator kind of company anymore, not really
They're not
a
Linux company. Okay.
No.
Okay.
And so it's not a Linux distribution, anymore. It really is. It's funny because even during the .com boom, the moment that the .com boom that we kind of all, or I think a lot of us scratched our heads, was the moment, and I thought about this when the story broke, the moment that Red Hat actually was worth more than IBM in value, its market capitalization, was the moment we all kind of went, yeah, this is probably getting a little bit out of control. And that wasn't long afterwards that the .com bust happened. Right. So it is somewhat ironic. That was one of the pivotal moments of the .com boom. It is funny that these two companies are now paired up, 20 years later almost, and trying to make a go at Amazon and Google and Microsoft as the big companies that are going to control the next generation of the internet and the enterprise, unless IBM can disrupt them. And IBM, they got their work cut out for them, even with this acquisition.
Although Red Hat gets them back in the door for a lot of other services, hopefully I think that's what they think, at least.
Yeah.
Although I have to say, and this is really unfair, and I don't mean this to be as cruel as it's probably going to sound, but it does in some ways remind me of the merger of Kmart and Sears.
Oh dear! Holy cow!
Well,
that went
right, I know. I know that's really harsh and all, but both of those companies, when they merged, had been successful for years in their field. They had struggled as other companies leapfrogged them, and they they dropped in the rankings in their segment. And Jason, like you say, you've got AWS, and then you have Azure, and then you have a big long gap before you get to Google and IBM and Salesforce or Oracle, anybody else who's going to be in there with a cloud product. And I just wonder that there's always a temptation for two smaller companies to combine and say, we're going to by combining we'll be big enough to be a credible competitor. But if they didn't, if it's not a good fit culturally, technologically, product-wise, then what you do is you magnify your problems instead of magnifying your opportunities.
Boy, the analogy to Kmart and Sears is pretty stunning. That was an $11 billion merger. Two failing retailers who were desperately trying to stay current this was back in 2004,
Yeah.
Right.
The one way this one looks better, though, is that they were in a market where retail was drastically dropping. In this case, 10% of the world, 10% of enterprises today are all cloud. By 2025, that's likely to be 80%. And so even these two together, if they can find a niche where it's like, we're really good at hybrid cloud, or we're really good at hospitals, or they can find one segment of the cloud market that they can serve better than anybody else in a market that's growing this big over the next decade, they could survive and even thrive if they can do that and do it well.
It does seem like a kind of a premium. I mean, it's a considerable amount over its Friday closing price. I wonder, will we say, did IBM overpaid for this, or was there a bidding war going on? Was there something going on behind the scenes? Did they just grasp it from? Usually, when the price is that high, there's somebody else like Google trying to come in and take it.
Google's long been rumored, as you know, and you got to those two. Yeah, or Microsoft. Microsoft doesn't really need them.
Yeah, and I don't think they want to spend that kind of money right now. I think that would be.
They don't. They don't have to. They've gotten so good, and they've hired so many of the top minds in Linux that it's one of those things. Like, it's a lot cheaper to just go and hire, for them to hire 5,000 really great, Linux or just open source and cloud experts.
If you bought Red Hat stock on Friday at $116. And it's now worth $190 on Sunday, you're very happy.
Yeah, you did all right.
Holy cow!
You might have the SEC knocking on your door.
Yeah.
But you're listening to Twit on the Cayman Islands internet now anyway. So
wow, just a kind of a stunning move, and I think only, as they say, only time will tell.
I think they'll do okay. I think that the cloud market is growing so big, and there's so much headroom and so much that's happening. They don't even have to have a massive part of that market. If they can find 5 to 10% of it and serve it really well, they'll do fine.
Do you think Linus Torvalds is going to get a little check? No,
I don't think so.
He's got to be looking at this
Stan
going,
Lee cameo, maybe.
Unless he invested in Red Hat early on, but
he might have some Red Hat stock. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised.
He might,
right?
He might. Yeah. It's possible. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure Linus isn't hurting. Linus, of course, the creator of Linux, as a graduate student, kept the trademark, but didn't keep people from creating related software or their own versions of Linux. Now, but you said Red Hat is, I know Red Hat from way back when it was Red Hat Linux. It was much more than that they acquired, right?
Yeah. Right. It's a cloud and open source juggernaut, now.
Yeah. By the way, Linus took a month off to deal with anger issues last month, that he's back now. Maybe he knew and he was angry about that. I don't know. A kinder, gentler Linus Torvalds coming back to
36 days to sort out his role. And what he was saying, it wasn't just anger issues. It was the tone that he was setting in the management of probably the single most important open source project in the world. And he was, a frankly cruel and dismissive character to a lot of people. And I think, and people pointed that out. The whole Linux project did a whole new code of conduct, and he went away for 36 days and then came back saying, I've learned things.
I like Linus a lot. But he's never yelled at me, so I don't. I never tried to commit any code to the kernel.
Now, there was an article that said that in 1999, Red Hat Linux presented Torvalds with stock options in gratitude for the work he did.
Maybe he had a big day today. That would be.
He might have if they if he stuck with those stock options and hasn't already sold them. My guess is he probably still has some. I would be surprised if he didn't still have some of those. That's
good. I hope
that's pretty awesome.
I'd love to see some money going.
Yeah, you have to. I think the great thing about his story and ultimately, Red Hat, for better or worse, has been known as the flagship Linux company, even though that we said they've grown and are far larger than just Linux itself. You still have to think that in one sense this is sort of a victory for a very public kind of victory for open source and its journey. And to Torvalds, he created this he started this as a college student. And welcomed others to build on his work, and he changed the world. He did something amazing that has made the technology world a better, more open place, and so you kind of have to tip your hat to him for it.
His timing was singular too, because he did this in '91 when the internet was starting to emerge, and the idea of collaborative, global coding was brand new, but boy, it couldn't have been a better time. And of course, I got to point out one more thing, which is that Linus wrote Git. So now that Microsoft owns GitHub for God knows how many billions of dollars, I swear to God, this guy, we talk about Elon Musk a lot. Maybe Linus Torvalds.
He changed the world.
Yeah.
Literally
maybe
changed the
world. He should
get
a little more credit.
Yeah. And obviously with his recent problems, at least he's trying to do the right thing, right?
Yeah.
So, and there's been lots of imperfect people that have done, amazing things, and as will be the case for the rest of the life on our life on this planet.
Yeah.
So
we live in interesting times. Let's take a break. Come back. There's lots more to talk about. Ed Bott is here. It's great to have you, Ed. The Ed Bott Report is on ZDNet. He's at Ed Bott on Twitter. You still on the Twitter?
Oh, I'm still on the Twitter.
I love Ed's Twitter. Just Ed, thank you so much. You're a lot of great Twitter
lately.
It's
a great Twitter. It is well worth following.
One of the few reasons I stay on Twitter, honestly, is
every once in a while I even talk about tech.
Well, and it's really it's a lot more fun to follow these events like the Apple event and the Microsoft event when you can follow it through Ed. By the way, Ed is participating in the traditional Halloween renaming on Twitter. His Halloween name 404, Halloween name not found. Thank you. Our show today and I forgot, Rene Ritchie, imore.com. I gave Ed a plug, forgot to give you one, imore.com/Vector for the fabulous Vector podcast. And
Thank you so much.
Renee's normally on Mac Break Weekly, won't be here till Tuesday. I guess he's got a date in Brooklyn.
So I snuck in early.
Yeah, we thought we'd put him on now. And Jason Hiner, the great Jason Hiner from Tech Republic, editor-in-chief there. He's also at CBS Interactive. And I guess you'll be writing more than a few Red Hat stories over the next few days.
not me, but I have people that will be.
Mr. Vaughn.
I'll be talking about it. That's for sure.
Our show today brought to you by Audible. I don't get to do enough Audible ads these days. I save up my Audible picks for the Audible ads. Audible is a life changer. I've been an Audible customer since 2000, 18 years now. And it's kept me from many a road rage incident. And anytime I've got free time, whether it's in the car, doing the dishes, I love Audible now because I can put Audible on my Sonos. We listen on our Sonos. I could put it on my Amazon Echo. I listen on my Amazon Echo. Of course, I listen on my phone. And there's so many good books out there. I'm going to give you some recommendations. Before I do, I'll tell you could start a 30-day trial and get your first audiobook free right now if you visit audible.com/twit or text twit to 500. Another feature that Audible's just added that I'm a huge fan of is these Audible Originals. So you not only get the credit good for an audiobook, you'll also get 2 Audible Originals every month from a rotating selection. And I have been really enjoying that. I'm listening to Hi Bob, which is Bob Newhart's podcast. That's one of the Audible Originals for the month of October. I'm looking forward to next month. But there's other great Audible Originals of all kinds. Really fun to get. And they're free. There's something you get. It's part of being a membership. Audible members also get to access audio, fitness, and health workouts created exclusively for Audible. Nice thing about the credits, they roll over. So I'm sitting on 2 credits right now. And I don't know. I'll tell you what I've been listening to lately that I've really enjoyed. And this I want to really recommend. It was recommended to me by one of our chatters, and it took me a while to read, but I enjoyed every minute of it. It's by an author named Emor Tolles. It's called A Gentleman in Moscow, and I just loved it. It's about a duke, a Russian duke, who was made a non-person in the 1920s by the Bolsheviks and exiled to the Metropole Hotel in Moscow and lives there for 30 years. And it's about his 30-year life in the Metropole as the communist revolution swirls around him. And it really is an ode to friendship. I just adored it.
Do you want an audible recommendation, Leo?
From you, Jason, always. Because I got 2 credits just sitting here burning a hole in my pocket.
Use those. Okay, I got a good one for you. Washington's Farewell by John Avlon.
Ooh.
So it's about George Washington. One of the most famous things. It's kind of not taught much anymore, but for 150 years or so, it was very well known, very widely taught. One of the most published things in American history was Washington's farewell address, and it's essentially it
couldn't be more timely. I know it couldn't be more timely.
Oh my gosh! So it's all about it's in one sense a very gentlemanly polemic against partisan politics, but it deals also with foreign policy very closely, and talks about the tone of our dialogue even as well.
Couldn't be better.
So you couldn't find something that's more of an antidote to to what you read and see every day. In the news.
And it's also mentioned in Hamilton. And I know that's a big thing for you, too.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
Washington's Farewell, The Founding Fathers' Warning to Future Generations by John Avlon. Ed or Rene, if you have a pick, don't hesitate. We like sharing our picks. And while you're thinking about that, let me remind you, you can all go to audible.com/twit and start your 30-day trial, your free audiobook, or text TWIT, T-W-I-T, to 500 500, audible.com/twit, or text TWIT to 500 500. Lots of new features in the audio app if you haven't used it, including the ability to play directly to Sonos speakers, which is great because I put my book in the whole house, and then as I'm doing stuff around the house, cooking or cleaning, I can listen to it in every room, which is fantastic. You can send books, share books in your library with anyone. And if it's their first time accepting a book, they can listen free. You can share audio excerpts, which I want to start doing with friends. Listen faster or slower. I know many people listen to Twit at twice the speed. You can do that with your audiobooks as well. Audible.com/twit or text TWIT, T-W-I-T, to 500 500. There's a couple of recommendations for you. I just got, I watched on, I think, was it HBO or Showtime, Benedict Cumberbatch in Patrick Melrose. And then I found out that it's actually a biographical true story, as crazy as that sounds. And I got the entire Patrick Melrose novels. This is not for the young, but it is hysterical. Never Mind, Bad News, Some Hope, Mother's Milk, and At Last, all 5 novels in one 27-hour audiobook, and I am truly enjoying it. Very well written too. It's a Showtime, I guess, 5-part series on Showtime. Let's see here. Moving along, back to the tech news. The president. Yeah, you just laugh when I say that, don't you? The president, according to the New York Times, has 3 phones, all 3 of them iPhones. 2 of them are carefully modified to be secure by the Secret Service. One, for instance, only has Wi-Fi. The third is a stock iPhone, which, according to the Times, the president keeps because it has his contact list on it, and that's the one he uses to make phone calls. And according to the New York Times, it's the one the Chinese and Russians are hoping he'll use because they can listen in. The president denies it.
All of us have experience doing tech support for older people.
Yeah, that's what it's like. But it's my contacts are on this one.
And the CIA. The best part of this story to me, there's so much of it that's just horrifying and stupid and wrong. But the best part of it, I think, was was it the Chinese trade minister?
Yes.
Who said, "Yes, you should use a Huawei phone."
It would be secure.
Dude, that was an amazing troll on that one. I gotta give big props to that one. That was
when Ed said that. I just imagined him putting it on speaker and holding it to his ear, the way you see people in coffee shops. Talk on the phone.
Yeah, really loud.
Like
Everybody can hear it. Yeah,
they don't know there's an earpiece. It's like on FaceTime or something, and it's stuck up to their ear.
We do.
Yeah, that was some serious shade. The Huawei thing was some big time shade.
And ZTE is going, what about some love for us? Really? Nothing? Sorry.
Actually, I talked with a PR person from Huawei just this week because I really like the P20, but I said to her, the first thing it does is say, can we send everything you're doing back to the office? And she said, here's the good news. That's all sent to Germany, not to China.
What?
So there, I feel better.
That actually is good news.
Okay.
Actually, it's much. It's if you're going to send to one country in the world, send it to Germany. Exactly. I really like the P20, and they have a new one, the Mate Pro 20, which is just spectacular phone. But they can't get it sold in the United States because the Commerce Department basically went to Verizon, and I can't remember, was it AT&T, and said, it would be a mistake for you to carry this phone.
Hey, you can get them in Canada, Leo. Like you can bootleg the booze across the border with the phone.
You could buy this phone in every other country in the world except the United States because Huawei didn't. It's not that you couldn't, but Huawei didn't want to spend time marketing something in the U.S. if you couldn't get it from carriers.
And so on Earth 2, just like Jay Garrick, just like people from China used to fly to the United States to be here for the introduction of a new iPhone so that they could, pay people to stand in line and then buy suitcases full of iPhones that they would take back to China. On Earth 2, there are plane loads of people going to China to buy Huawei phones, to bring them back to the U.S., to give them to people who are eagerly waiting for this fabulous technology.
You can buy them on Amazon. I bought a P20, and it's a great camera, really nice phone. I'm not crazy about their version of Android. It's highly customized, and
it's the purple back, Leo. Once you have a purple back, it's just the best phone ever.
It's very pretty, very pretty. So I don't, the president says it's fake news. That's kind of his go-to anyway. I kind of believe it. The Times said this story was leaked to us by White House staffers who were so frustrated by trying to get Trump to not use his unsecure phone. They just said, we got to tell the Times. But
how does he have a choice? Like you hear stories from every previous president who literally had their BlackBerry iPhone or Windows phone torn out of their hand and an NSA phone shoved back into it.
Norms.
Like they had no choice.
Yeah.
Norms. Other presidents said, "Oh, okay. Well, when the NSA or the CIA tells me that I should do something because it's a major national security issue, then they did it." That's how it used to work.
Yeah, but you are the president, the leader of the free world, and you can say no. You can do whatever you want, really.
But it's like the Secret Service grab you and take you out of a building. You can't say no. There's certain things where we heard an explosion. We are physically removing you from this building.
That you can't say.
We are taking your phone. Like there should be certain things that are just like.
It seems that, but he said no. I'm keeping it, and I'm gonna have 2 scoops of ice cream for dessert. Thank you very much. That's why
the other favorite detail in that story for me was that they found that I think, if I'm recalling this correctly, that he was going into the Situation Room alone to make phone calls because he knew that nobody would be able to, nobody would be able to monitor them.
Yeah.
And I don't know, what is he trying to call David Pecker and say, where are the tapes? Where, that just are they still in the safe?
Trump's tweet says, I always use a landline and never use a cell phone. But, of course, the New York Times led the article with a picture of him using an iPhone in the car. So, who knows? We know he tweets from an iPhone.
Like cigarettes. He just can't quit the habit.
Can't quit the habit. The question probably, on a lot of people's minds who read this is, well, wait a minute. I thought the iPhone was secure. Rene, if you were the Chinese government or the Russian government or, I don't know, anybody on the street who wanted to listen in on the president's phone calls because they got to be good, how would you go about doing it?
The reason they used to take the other phones away, and BlackBerry was super secure back, when previous presidents used it. Yeah.
But Obama's BlackBerry was immediately taken from him, and he was given a kind of crappy Windows CE phone.
Yeah, it's because once you're using a normal phone, there's all sorts of ways. Like you don't have to get on the phone. There's all sorts of radios being beamed out of that phone all through the air. There's lines that are going out and through the carriers. The U.S. government does that all the time. It is rife for exfiltration, and you just don't want anybody using a non-hardened, non-NSA, non-completely cryptoed phone on for any means, any government thing.
So Wired, Lily Hay Newman and Wired had an article on, well, how would this work? One thing we know is there's stingrays all over Washington. Some of them run by national intelligence agencies. Some of them, we don't know who they're run by. Those are fake cell towers that can intercept phone calls and impersonate cell towers.
They're like man-in-the-middle attacks, but for cell phones.
Yep. There's also the issue of SS7, and she goes into this in great detail. SS7 is the baseband software that's basically in all phones, and it was invented in 1975 and is laden with issues and has been hacked multiple times, and that would be another venue, another avenue. In fact, probably what you do is do both, right?
Yep.
So I think you have to think, I'm going to give the security community the benefit of the doubt here, because there's a lot of really smart people that have, served on multiple administrations that have been working on this stuff for a long time. And if this is the case, if this report's right, I have to believe that the moment, he came in, that they, for example, maybe swapped out that SIM card with some like super, encrypted, different kind of SIM cards. Like, you're not using that anymore. Maybe they even swapped out the iPhones themselves, right? And have, versions that they've. Sure, this looks like a phone, but they've, swapped out the radios in it or something, right? So for all that he knows, he's using an iPhone, but it's a different device, a bit on the inside. I just think they've been working on this problem and for a long time. I'm sure that when Obama walked in, they told him and they showed him like, look, we've got everything you've been doing. You think you're secure? We can show you that we've gotten all of your messages. There have been some sort of reports to that effect, that showed how insecure it was. And that was at the time the most secure phone you could get straight off of the streets. So if this is the case, I don't think it's a case of utter incompetence on the part of the security community. I think that they likely have that thing locked down one way or another.
God, I hope so. In 2016, President Obama.
Big fishing target, though.
Well, that's the other problem is who knows what he's.
I doubt he has that phone in his hands very often. I think that I think he's probably dictating a lot of those tweets to other people. So.
In 2016, Obama got the first presidential smartphone. But he told Jimmy Fallon it's more like a toddler phone.
Weren't there pictures of it? It was like it was running Windows embedded or something, and it was like completely hardened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of those people in Washington, like the DOJ and Secret Service and all of that, 99% of the people that work in those agencies are professionals that work there and have worked there for a long time. People tend to be in those jobs for a long, long time. And such a small percentage of them are political appointees. Right. And they're a bit firewalled from the rest of what really happens, right? They're more public spokespeople.
Yes. I think, thank you for speaking, calming us all down a little bit, Jason, because I think you're absolutely right. Who knows what he's doing, but I'm sure that there are trained professionals.
The minute that phone is put on the desk, it is swept 8 or 9 times a day.
OPSEC professionals who are doing something. Yeah. Meanwhile, according to Vox, the midterms are already hacked. You just don't know it yet. We had last week Dan Patterson on, who's done a really great thing for CBS on election
he's amazing.
Hacking, or 10-piece thing for CBS Radio News. A similar article quoting an investigation into the U.S. election system showing, according to Vox, frightening vulnerabilities at almost every level. The good news is, and Dan referred to this, is that we have such a heterogeneous voting system that it's really county by county, and so it'd be very hard to do kind of a mass hack. The other side of that equation is the nature of electoral politics in this country is that it doesn't take that many votes to sway an election one way or the other.
And in the right place.
In the right places.
That's what really matters. You know, the 2016 election was pretty much came down to roughly 80,000 votes in a handful of small regions in 4 states, you know, sort of clustered around the Great Lakes. You don't need to bus in people to you know, pull the lever using fake IDs. All you need to do is either change a few votes or suppress a few votes in a few key areas.
Yeah.
So we did a 7-part series on Tech Republic where we went to states and we talked to them, because a lot of this is handled not at the federal level, right? At the state level, there was a big federal grant that was given out, and the states could apply for that money. And then, so our series looked at what the states have actually been doing to secure the 2018 midterms over the past 2 years. So we've got Illinois, we've got Florida, we've got Ohio, West Virginia, which is using blockchain, and experiment with blockchain, as probably many people have heard about, Washington, and a couple others, Pennsylvania, which is going back to paper. And we talk about in this series the steps that are being done, the ways that they're changing auditing, the ways that paper is being used to back up votes, and the ways that they're using resources that they have at their disposal, like in many cases universities, where they have university experts in cybersecurity, or in some cases even their military, like their National Guard and folks like that, where they have cybersecurity experts and they're bringing them in to consult and make sure the elections are locked down. So I think if you read that 7-part series on Tech Republic, you'll feel a little bit better about the people that are trying to do this in really smart ways. Actually, the one that's been using some really smart ways to attack this for a long time is Colorado, and we also have them in the series as well. So, you know, be confident that there are smart people working on this problem. It doesn't mean that it's going to be foolproof, but they are serious, and they have been seriously working on this for a couple years. And it's not perfect, but they have made a lot of progress since 2016.
And of course, it's not just the U.S. In fact, the Brazilian election is over now. As of today, the far-right evangelical Jair Bolsonaro is now president of Brazil. And there is definitely an internet component, and interesting article on BuzzFeed News today about that. So, but that's politics. I won't get too far into politics. However, let's talk about this one, and this is the story that just keeps on giving. We're talking about the Bloomberg supermicro Chinese hack story. Now, Amazon has pulled its ads from Bloomberg. And sources say, according to Joseph Bernstein at BuzzFeed, both Amazon and Apple are taking retributive measures against Bloomberg. Apple did not invite Bloomberg to its event. Oh, no. Shocking.
Which is Mark Gurman, right? I mean, that's. I mean, he's not the one who reported that, but he's the one who goes to Apple
invited
events.
Anyway, I suspect.
No, he's been to all the most recent Apple events. Yeah, he's been to every one of them since he went to Bloomberg.
Well, I wonder if he's not going. And pulling ads, Amazon pulling ads from Bloomberg. This is. Well, you know, you've dealt with this, Ed Bott, I'm sure. And I remember that Ziff Davis had a very good and admirable policy for years not to give in to this kind of, you know, blackmail from companies over advertising.
Yeah, access journalism, you know.
Yeah. I mean, the firewall between advertising and editorial is there. And so advertisers are free to pull their ads, and they did. I mean, I remember that they did. And I cannot remember a single time that we were ever told to change our coverage. Yeah. That being said, this story is so far off the rails of anything I have ever seen. There's, I've never seen a story where all of the primary subjects of it are denying in the most unequivocal terms. There's no weasel words. There's no well, they left out this thing there, so that leaves the possibility that maybe they're hiding this thing in there. I mean, unequivocal denials. Sources who are backing down from the gist of the story and saying we don't support the gist of the story, and even people in the government who are saying we've looked at this and we can't find any evidence of this. And Bloomberg is the thing that I find just baffling about this is that Bloomberg is simply saying, well, we stand behind our story, rather than saying, okay, we didn't want to have to do this, but here, this is where if you're really good investigative reporters, you have a suitcase full of documents and you bring the suitcase in and you open it up and you pull these things out and they land on the table with a satisfying thunk. And then you start going through them and explaining why you wrote the story you did. And the fact that Bloomberg has not mounted a defense of this story just confounds me.
It doesn't pass the smell test. This was starting to get to where it doesn't pass the smell test. I agree with Ed. It's it feels like they should be more vigorously defending it, or saying, look, we're going to go back and look, we want to make sure the truth comes out, right? We're about telling the truth, and that's our job, and we're going to make sure we do it right. And so we're going to go back to and look at these sources again and dig deeper, and we'll let you know what we find out, kind of thing.
It just baffles me. This is a prestigious publication that put its reputation on the line.
Although this writer seems to be not the first time this has happened with his particular stories.
Well, there's two writers on them. One of them is very technical and understands a lot. The other, there was a story that he said that the NSA, I'm trying to remember what the details of it were, but the NSA had done something and no one else could confirm it, but it was never proven wrong either. So I doubt that Bloomberg management, their editor-in-chief, who was very respected, and they'd worked on this for 2 years. I doubt that they would kind of let this guy make a big mistake or lie. I just don't understand the deal.
The story that I've heard, and it's like sort of making the rounds, is that it really is Red Team 3 from the newsroom, which is absurd. But there was a story sort of given that was so compelling that everything else that he looked at was through the lens of that story. It wasn't, does this make he didn't go out and interview people and say what is happening. He's like, everything he heard was, can I use this to corroborate this really compelling story that I want to get published? And when you hear bits of a report,
he'd been working on it for 2 years. They had 17 sources.
But those he doesn't delineate what they say. Like, those sources could be corroborating.
He could make a mistake. Yeah.
It's still China. It's still a black box.
So, does it make sense that if this did happen, that eventually, sometime in the near future, somebody would come forward and say, "Yeah, here's a supermicro motherboard here."
Freedom of information on the FBI investigation at some point, right?
Well, but if you say national security, you could probably keep all that information secret.
Sometimes
I don't
sometimes
think,
you can.
I think,
sometimes not.
I think we'll know one way or another on this story. It will go down it will go down as one of the biggest blunder investigations of all time, or it will come out that actually they were right and this has been hidden, and even all of these companies that are denying it,
even that would be even more shocking.
Right.
Right. And so the one possible explanation that I've heard, and it's pure speculation, there's no evidence for this, but then again, there's no evidence for the story itself, is that this was is that the possibility that this is a disinformation campaign
from the U.S. government,
and that somebody planted this story as a way to,
reduce confidence,
credit, reduce confidence.
Yeah. Look, they don't want, our administration doesn't want us buying stuff made in China, period. That you don't need to go too far to find a motive for that. I'm increasingly of the opinion that this must be what happened, that it was planted.
It's sort of like what Andy said on MacBreak, where like you'd think by now someone else would have talked, like someone in the investigation, someone else who'd heard this, some other, like the New York Times is investing huge, like other outlets are spending a fortune trying to find whether they can prove or disprove this, and there's been nothing.
Nothing, but there's been silence.
Shocking.
There's been nothing but silence, one way or another.
Well, but you can't disprove a negative. So like they the New York Times can't say we've proven it didn't happen. But they, if they could, they would absolutely say we found these other 5 sources who corroborate the Bloomberg story.
Right. That's a good point too. Amazon's fourth quarter results came out. Amazon's stock plunged 10%, costing Jeff Bezos $14 billion. He's no longer, I think, the richest man in the world. He's only number 2, but that's okay.
You had to have it to lose it, Leo, and that's why I'm not going to shed too much.
And you know what? It'll probably go right back up. One of the things I learned from this, though, is how much money Amazon's making on advertising, online advertising. That is a huge business for Amazon, one that you wouldn't really expect. And by the way, they are kind of profitable. So whether they met the street's expectations.
This is now 7, 8, 9 quarters in a row of profitability. Yeah. After years and years and years of being criticized as a company that was just always plowing whatever profits it made back into the business, investing in infrastructure, and investing in what turned out to become AWS. But nobody really sort of grokked that at the time. But after all those years, they're now delivering a steady profit every single quarter.
AWS 46% sales increase, total revenue up 29%, net income up 10 times, 1,000% year over year, a record high $2.8 billion. But the market said you didn't meet expectations.
I mean, they manage profitability so carefully.
Yeah. It's anyway.
And remember, 10% of the cloud of enterprises are all cloud today. Right. It's going to be 80% by 2025.
It's only going to grow.
Where's Amazon going to be by then, right? It's going to be the biggest company in the world by far. Yeah.
Let's take a little break. Ed Bott, Jason Hiner, Rene, Ritchie. Always a pleasure to have you guys. Bott, Hiner, and Ritchie. Sounds like Murderer's Row from the 1927 Yankees. Bott to Hiner to Ritchie. We had a great week this week, and we have made a little video for your enjoyment.
On Twit.
How about a new course to teach people about fairness in machine learning? So, what do you see? Bananas, stickers, or bananas on shelves? Students who complete this training will learn how biases might affect this. But in many parts of the world, yellow is not a common color for banana. They're
green?
Pink. No, they're green. They're green. They're green.
The new screensavers.
This is the iPhone XR. What's good about this is the price. They start at $750. That's about $250 less than the XS Max. I am very, very happy with this. And I think given the $750 price point, I think this is going to be the iPhone for this year that people will really want. I think you're right. Save a little bit of money.
Tech News Weekly.
What is scarier, robots or wasps?
Wasps.
Have you been stung by a wasp?
Oh, I've got wasp stories.
Interesting. Yes. Robotics researchers have built robots that can fit in the palm of your hand, much like a wasp, but can also anchor themselves to the ground or to walls. And these are called MAVs, and they could be especially helpful in disaster zones and also in my nightmares.
Yeah. Come on, little drone. Yeah, there you are. You're welcome. See you later.
Yeah.
The bathroom's around the corner.
Twit. It keeps going and going and going.
Did the wasp fly up your nose? Is that
no, it trapped me at the top of a fort when I was a kid. There were like 5 of them, and they stung me, and I had to jump out of the fort. It was really frightening. It's a story I tell my kids to this day. Isn't that delightful?
Poor Jason. Our show today brought to you by Betterment, a better way, the smart way to manage your money. Betterment is the largest independent online financial advisor designed to help customers build wealth, plan for retirement, and achieve their financial goals. If you are saving, and you should be saving, whether it's for college or for a house or for retirement, you've got to put your money somewhere. You can't put it in a savings account these days. That's not going to go anywhere. So how do you invest? I think a lot of geeks, a lot of us say, oh, we can do it ourselves, and then put the money somewhere and just forget about it for years, and you don't know what's happening. This has been a tough year in the market. That's why you need a little help. You need Betterment. Betterment uses technology to help you make more from your investments. And actually, you can really take advantage of Betterment when the market's down, because they can do then tax loss harvesting and give you a tax benefit that kind of offsets the losses. It's things like that. They're trading instantaneously on your behalf. There are no hidden costs. You pay a low, transparent management fee, and the transactions you do not get charged for transactions. They do that all within the fee. They're a fiduciary. This is really important. In fact, you should ask anybody who gives you advice, are you a fiduciary? They make recommendations in your best interest. They are not incentivized to recommend certain funds. They don't have their own investment products to sell, but you do get unlimited expert advice that's tailored to you exactly. Betterment gives you constant access to information and tools that allow you to track progress towards your goals. You'll feel smart. You will. And you can take advantage of down markets and up markets. Investing involves risks. I'm not saying it doesn't, but our listeners can get up to 1 year managed free right now if you go to betterment.com/twit. Betterment.com/twit. Betterment, outsmart average. Been a bad kind of couple of weeks for Microsoft. Windows 10, 1809. I don't even know what to say. There is no question that the worst kind of bug you can have in an operating system is one that deletes data by accident. That's what's happened to Microsoft, not once, but twice now. And here's Ed Bott writing about it. He says, worst Windows 10 version ever. Microsoft's terrible, horrible, no good, very bad, October. A lot of people are speculating why this is happening. Ed, do you have an opinion on this? Does this have something to do with the way Microsoft develops Windows?
I don't think that was, Peter Bright wrote a really good article in Ars Technica about this, and everyone should read that. It's long and it's technical, but I think he gets at a few points.
His premise is that when you did a new version of Windows every 3 years, you could do it in a kind of a waterfall method that really involved planning a short period of development, testing, and release, but that it's not working as well in the shorter time frames of the dual yearly releases. And Microsoft fired all the professional testers and basically has relied, it seems, on the Windows Insiders program, which is, you're getting people who are not professional testers. And so the testing has been somewhat haphazard.
So it's slightly more complicated than that. And so my thesis in this article is, there's a great management principle, really important management principle. What gets measured gets done, right? And what Microsoft has done with Windows 10, and they caught a lot of flack unjustifiably, in my opinion, on privacy issues because of all the monitoring diagnostic feedback technology that they built into Windows 10. And what that's given them is the ability to look in real time at these dashboards as software is installed, as drivers are installed, as people use the product, as they, open the start menu and
Microsoft calls it telemetry. And in fact, that's that stuff that is sending back to the home office all the time, right?
And so they have become so obsessed with telemetry that has become the metric that they use for everything. And so so when they see a problem, they say, on our telemetry dashboards, we see that blue screens are down 35%, and driver problems are down 17%, and the start menu is opening 17 seconds faster, 17% faster, and so on and so on and so on. The trouble is that the problems that they've been encountering throughout the month of October, and there are a few other ones here as well, are the kind of things that you're not going to see in telemetry. and they basically require. So let me see if I can very briefly explain the killer bug that caused them to pull the software 4 days after they released it, which is kind of unheard of. If you had relocated your documents and videos and music folders to a different drive using the built-in feature, Windows 10, and all versions of Windows, for that, you said, I want this on the D drive instead of the C drive. And so you click that thing. But if you left the original folder on the C drive, the installer program said, oh, okay, you've relocated your personal files. And so therefore, anything that's in the original location is junk, and we're just going to get rid of it during the process of upgrading to this new version. And eek, that's not the way that a lot of people had done this. They had files in two different places. That's the kind of thing. Telemetry is never going to tell you that happened. And this was reported by amateur testers in the Windows Insider program. They had been reporting this sporadically for several months, but non-professionals don't write good bug reports. And so these things never rose to the level of urgency that an engineer needed to see them. And back to your point, Leo, yes, when they got rid of the dedicated testers, the things that dedicated testers do in a situation like this is they start testing edge cases. The developer says, well, I wrote this product to do this feature, and here's how it was designed, and it works as designed. And a good tester says, well, what happens if I do this? Why would you do that? I'm an end user. End users
do crazy things.
End users do, off the wall things for whatever reason they have for doing those things. But that's my thesis of why this happened, is that they didn't have processes in place to effectively identify these kind of edge cases. So the bottom line is they do have Windows 10 is, I think, verifiably more reliable and more performant than any previous version of Windows. And yet, that is because of the system that they built that allowed some of these weirdo bugs to slip through. And they only affect a small number of people, but it really hurts if you're one of the people who got affected by this.
Yeah, data deletion is pretty severe.
Yeah.
That's as bad as it gets. I guess the only thing worse is not running at all, but at least you don't lose your data.
Right.
Although again, all this stuff is so complicated.
It's complicated, but it's at the same time, it feels to me like we've gotten pretty good at software engineering and making reliable software. I know how complicated Windows is, but it seems to me it's a tooling problem. You don't fire your testers. That's nuts. You have tooling and a system that tests everything as you're going, not all I think Bright's not far off when he says waiting till you finish development to start testing is wrong. There's some simple things that I feel like Microsoft could work on, and adding this box to the Insider program. How does this problem impact your experience? That's worthless. Every bug is severe if you use this box. It's just dopey.
And that's the thing. Apple had a very bad month of its own when it had a bunch of really bad, root exploits, and they had a bad year. And they realized that they were doing similar to what Ed said. They were testing for crashes are way down, and these apps are launching faster. But it turns out a lot of people found frustrators in volume just as bad as crashes, and they didn't really have metrics on that. And that's what led to a lot of the performance-based rewrites that we've gotten this year. And I always think really bad things are going to happen. Yes, they may have made a mistake with the testers. So for me, it's always how a company responds to those things. There are companies that respond terribly to these kinds of things and companies that respond really well to them. And Microsoft, when you say a few percentage of users, when you're at Apple or Microsoft or Google scale, that's still hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people.
Yeah, Microsoft said only 1%, 1/100th of 1% of users experienced it, but that's 1,500 people who lost it.
At Windows scale, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
and it's just a lot of it goes back to the desktop is and computers are not flashy. It's not a growth market. And so these companies are managing them for profit, right? They're putting fewer and fewer resources, the minimal resources they can possibly put against it, that they can. We've seen it with Mac, and we've seen it with Windows. I was at Microsoft campus last year, and I was amazed. I was there for 3 days. I didn't hear the word Windows one time.
Yeah. It's like Google
Azure.
not saying the word Android in its
They're the
product
kids who have gone off to college and have kids and have settled down. They don't give them the attention that they used to.
Well, I think there's
Totally.
more than that. I think Mary Jo Foley referred to this. I think they don't want to be thought of as a Windows company as much.
They definitely.
They've removed Windows from the branding of a lot of their corporate. It used to be Windows Azure. Now it's Microsoft Azure. Right. And that's deliberate. They want to be going. They want that branding to be there because Windows is a shrinking part of the larger population of devices, especially mobile devices in there. But I think there's a second problem as well. I called it out in a different column where I said I think two feature updates a year is too many. 2 updates a year is too many. And here's the problem. Every time you do an update, whether it's to your iPhone or your Android or your Windows PC or your Mac, every time you do a major upgrade there, no matter how conscientiously the developers have designed it and how well they have tested it, you're changing the state of a whole bunch of parts of the device, and you're introducing the opportunity for something to go wrong. And the thing that could go wrong could be someone else's fault. It's a driver from a third-party company, or it's a defective piece of hardware, or whatever. But when you're doing that every 6 months, when you're doing this, this big refresh, you're just introducing an opportunity for bad things to happen, even if they're not your fault. And if my PC breaks, if my iPhone breaks because you gave me an update, I'm going to call you, and when you tell me, well, it's not our fault, I'm not going to accept that.
Yeah. Both Mac.
It's
a great point. Both Mac and Windows, and look. As a publication, we love when they do new versions because people want to know, right? What are the new features? And it's something to talk about, and it's interesting. But from a user standpoint, it's really it's really out of date. Think about Chromebook, right? That's much more. There's much less to change with Chromebook. Let's be honest, but. When do they announce, oh yeah, a new version of Chrome OS is going to be released? Never. They never talk about it. You just restart the thing once in a while and it automatically, has some new features. And sometimes they talk a little bit about the new features, but really that's more the future model of where this stuff is going to go. And it makes a lot more sense. We see it in our own site. We used to do these big redesigns, and inevitably every time we did a redesign, we would lose at least like 5% of our users because they were like, you moved something and I can't find it, or something would break. And, finally, I just was like, we're not doing any more redesigns. We're just going to incrementally add and get better. And when there's big features, we'll announce it and we'll let people know we gave you something new or whatever. And it works so much better. And we don't have these big moments where we moved somebody's cheese or we broke something that was really important to them. We rarely ever have those kinds of things anymore because we just go incrementally.
Would we be better off if one of these companies just said, let's start over, let's rewrite this from scratch in modern
Fuchsia?
Maybe maybe that's what Google's doing with Fuchsia, but maybe Microsoft or Apple. Let's start over. Let's write this in a modern language, a type-safe language, with good testing tools, and maybe do it right.
It's really hard because like they did OS 10 was a huge transition for Apple, and it was a painful transition. And I don't think they want to, or they can just go buy another next. There's no next. So what they're doing is bit by bit, year after year, they're rewriting LaunchD. They're changing the file system. They went to Swift, and even those are
but that's
incredibly
changing
painful.
the engine of a plane in flight. It's a very hard thing to do.
And almost everything we've been complaining about in terms of performance and bugs and stuff is a result of changing massive amounts of internal infrastructure.
Right.
Yeah. And the other thing about the introduction of OS 10 was that Apple was a company in trouble. They didn't have a lot to lose at that point.
Right.
And
in fact, they were about to go out of business. They were inches away from going out of business. There's some historical debate about how close they were to that, but basically it was an unsustainable path that they were on, and so having Steve Jobs buy Next and then bringing him and Next back into the company and turning Next into OS 10. Was, it wasn't disrupt yourself before someone else does. It was disrupt ourselves because the heading towards
OS
a brick
9,
wall.
OS 9 is not the future.
Oh, it wasn't. Will we be still using Windows and Mac OS and Linux and iOS and Android 100 years from now? No.
Well, Red Hat, Leo.
We'll be using Red Hat. But seriously, I mean, are we done? Is this it? These are the operating systems. Good luck. Have fun.
It's the cybernetic operating system, whatever they're going to plug into our brains eventually, and we'll live in some joint consciousness.
At least.
I think we're not going to, in 25 years, I don't think we're going to just be talking about operating systems anymore. I think that it won't matter. I think some of it will be, there will be layers in between, operating systems that will unify things. You're already seeing that in the cloud world where, you actually, your infrastructure works on both Amazon and runs on both Amazon and Azure, sometimes also Google too.
True.
But you have a layer above that where, that essentially functionally, things are running on. And to the user, it doesn't matter. And I think the operating systems are going to be that way. It's going to fade further and further into the background. And that's one of the reasons the companies aren't, they don't pay a lot of lip service to them anymore. I think they would like them to move more into the background. I think even within a decade, it's possible. Maybe even within 5 to 10 years, I think you'll see Windows and Mac both go more to the Chrome OS model of these sort of incremental updates. The funny thing is, Microsoft intellectually or at least conceptually was there when they announced Windows XP, right? Because the Windows XP, the original launch, the original pitch of Windows XP is we're going to get out of the operating system business. We're going to, you're going to buy this, you'll buy it sort of a subscription and we'll give you updates continually. And we're going to stop with these big releases. That was in 2001. But there was such a backlash from the people who still loved and thought of their computer as the operating system that they had to backpedal from that. And eventually they kind of threw up their arms. But, this idea has been around for a long time. And I think we're just sort of at the end of the cycle for the operating system. And its days aren't, in terms of being a thing that we think about and talk about, and it's part of what we think about for computers. Now, there's going to be still new features, and we're going to be talking about new features that are introduced, just in the same way we do in the app world and iOS world, and when there's new and Android world, when there are new things that are announced, and like Google Maps has done this year, an amazing amount of new features, right? And every time there's a new feature, it just kind of will slowly trickle it out to a certain number of users, and then somebody gets wind of it and they start talking about it, because they were part of the A/B test where it went out to whatever 10%, 20% of users. We're going to still be talking about features, but we're not going to be talking about these big OS upgrades. I think the days are definitely numbered.
Although, if you'd asked me 10 years ago if IBM would acquire Red Hat for $32 billion, I would have said no.
Would you have thought that people would be walking around with Linux boxes in their pocket running Conqueror?
I mean, come on. Would you have thought the Vatican would have created a Pokemon Go where you catch saints? No. So
no. It's going to be WeChat OS, Leo. We all know that.
If you'd asked me 10 years ago, would you go around spinning little balls to throw at pocket monsters at invisible gyms? What is the story here? Is this a made-up story? Is this a joke site?
No. This is a real story.
It's
we
Italian.
reported it. We reported it. It's only in so the app is only in Spanish right now.
It's called JC Go, not Pokemon Go.
Right.
You X-rayed for the Pope? It's just weird.
It's the Vatican has essentially given it the blessing.
Is it using the Niantic software, or is it somebody else's
the Google
game?
open source one?
Oh,
it's
maybe.
somebody else. It's somebody else. You have to memorize like verses and identify. I only know this because on download.com we covered it as well on cnetdownload.com. And so, which I've been, working with them as well. But because the app economy is still just, there's so many apps and so many interesting things that people are doing.
Once you find the character, you don't just capture it; you have to answer questions.
Yeah,
you have to beatify it, Leo. You have to beatify it.
This is virtual altar boy.
Yeah, that's hysterical.
I want to go back to the question that you asked, though, Leo, which is, are we still going to be using these things? Nobody predicts the whole point of truly disruptive technologies is that people
disrupt.
laugh at them when they first appear, and they appear and they become possible because there's no established market that you have to cater to, that you have to satisfy. And so we mentioned OS 10, right? Which was, Rene, it was 2001, right?
Yes.
And
I wanted 1997. I forget, 97.
OS 10?
Oh no, you're right. Yeah, 2001.
It was 2001, but I think it was the same year that the iPod came out, and you go back and you read the reviews of the iPod.
Well, that's a good point.
I did this a few years ago and I think I wrote an article about it. You go back and you read the reviews of the iPod, and people just laughed at it. It was this big clunky thing, and it has a hard drive in it, and who's gonna, how are they going to sell music and put it on it? And it's only for the Mac.
Nomad
Nobody has Macs, and yet, arguably, OS 10 was, an important product and everything, but the iPod is the
big disruptor,
the primogenitor of all the smartphones and all the mobile technology that we have today. It all goes back to there, and yet it was sort of laughed at as an expensive toy. That is this really going to be a big thing? And yet, relentlessly innovating and developing and turning it into, tablet and smartphone and all of that, and that's how disruption works. So we're not going to be using the technology that we have now. In 30 years, people are going to look back at movies from this time, and kids are just going to giggle at, they're just.
Did you see the size of that phone Leo was holding up to his head?
And Grandpa Leo, God, how old? He was 90 then.
It was shaped like a banana. But you had a cord? You had a corded phone, Leo?
Denise Howell says the Vatican's also working on a alternative version of Flappy Bird called Flappy Saints. But I don't think... Denise,
no Fortnite?
I hope not.
With the Swiss Guards. I mean,
yeah. We're gonna take a little break, come back with the silly stories of the week. And another Pokemon Go story that's very good news. But first... I want to tell you how you could take your Wi-Fi and make it all better again. And I know because I did it. In just a few minutes, it's the Eero. This is an enterprise-grade Wi-Fi system you can install in under 10 minutes. You just download the Eero software, put it on your phone, unplug your cruddy old router, and plug in this Eero, and the phone will walk you through it, attaching additional Eero beacons if you need it through the home. This is a distributed system. This is what we've had for years. Offices have had for years. Now you can have it in your home, and it solves the problem of bad Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi isn't any different. It's just that we're using it more. Our neighbors are interfering with us more. How many devices do you have using Wi-Fi in your house? It used to be maybe one laptop. Now, I have now, at last count, 62 different devices in my home that are on the Wi-Fi network. Between Amazon Echoes, my doorbell, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Everything's on the Wi-Fi, but Eero can handle it. The Eero app lets you manage your network from the palm of your hand. In fact, that's how I know how many devices I have connected. You also get the internet speed. I love the Eero app. And Eero Plus, which is really nice, is fantastic. Eero Plus is, in fact, I'll show you because I have Eero Plus. I subscribe to it and I love it. We have 5 Eeros in the house. Eero Plus, so you can see everything looks good. There's the 5 Eeros. Here's the bandwidth, the recent bandwidth test. I could take a look at the Eero Plus settings. Look at all the stuff I get for free, by the way, with Eero Plus. 13,000 sites were inspected this week. I can go back to the previous month as well as I want. In fact, through October, 1,085,000 sites that we went to in the house inspected. The good news is they didn't have to do any threat blocks this week. There were a few in weeks past. These were malicious malware that was blocked, spyware that was blocked, botnets, phishing attacks that were blocked, content filters. I have those turned on for our 15-year-old, and it will protect him. Advanced security, even ad blocking. I love, and this is all part of the router. The Eero is fantastic. Guest access, I like it so much I installed it at my mom's house because she was having problems as well. This Eero automatically will tag sites that contain violent, illegal, or adult content. You could choose what your kids can and cannot see, and you could do that in the app. I can even say to my Amazon Echo, pause Michael's internet if, he acts up, and it turns off his internet. Not mine. I still can surf. I can still play Pokemon Go, but he's got to go to bed now. Oh, Michael. Eero and Eero Plus provides complete protection for your network, your devices, and all of those who use them as they connect to the internet, and I love that. Make your Wi-Fi work again with the best router, Eero. Eero also, and this is really important for any device that goes on the internet, automatically updates. You not only get the latest features, but the latest in security at all times. WPA3, yep, they just said we'll be doing it. It'll be a software update on the Eero router. Things like that. It's really nice to know. Eero is taking care of you at all times. I am a huge fan of Eero. Life's too short for bad Wi-Fi. Right now, just get $100 off the Eero base unit and 2 beacons package. $100 off. And this is the best offer we've ever had. A year of Eero Plus. And all you have to do is go to Eero, E-E-R-O, Eero.com/twit, and enter the offer code TWIT at checkout. If you've been waiting, if you've heard me talk about how much I love our Eero, and look at all the stuff you get with Eero Plus, this is the best offer we've ever offered. This is great. $100 off the base unit and 2 beacons. That's what you want pretty much. That's what we have 5, but most people 3 is good. That's $100 off and a year of Eero Plus. I think that's worth $99. Eero.com/twit. Enter the code TWIT at checkout. It's just transfer. I got so tired of Lisa saying the Wi-Fi down again. I had to get the Eero. She actually, you know how she got me to do it. She said, "I'm going to have John, Russell, and Burke come and fix our Wi-Fi." But you're married to the tech guy. But. That's when I got the Eero.
At least it wasn't Manny, Mo, and Jack.
I'm getting those Starbucks people to come put Google Wi-Fi here.
She says, all I have to do is give them a free dinner and they'll do it. I said, yeah,
I want that dinner.
It cured the problem, let me tell you. All right, a couple of weird stories. How about this? This is a painting that's sold at Christie's at art auction. It's a painting called Edmond de Bellamy from La Famille de Bellamy by the French art collective Obvious, painted entirely by artificial intelligence after looking in machine learning a bunch of classic paintings. And this sold at Christie's. Are you ready for this? $432,500.
P.T. Barnum is cheering in his grave.
There's a sucker pawn every minute. Is that what you're saying?
The developer who wrote the code and the primary algorithms behind that, as I understand it, didn't get a dime.
What? Why not?
Well, that's
work for hire.
That's the $432,000 question.
Is it Linus Torvalds who did it? So what we don't know is who bought it, but because it was an anonymous phone bidder.
It was Sergey.
It's that's what it is, right? It's Andy Rubin. He got $90 million from Google. He probably somebody bought it who said, "Hey,
he needs to divest that money quick."
If you're so right, if you're so rich, if you're as rich as Larry Page or Jeff Bezos, that's $20. Yeah, I'll lay down $20 to buy that. I'll have a piece of history.
Honey, I'm drunk. Look, I'm buying Christie stuff.
432.
The perfect punchline for that would have been if it had, as soon as they hit the gavel on there, zoom down through a shredder.
Yes, like the Banksy painting.
Yeah, like the Banksy thing. It's a surprise.
So
Banksy bought it.
This was a painting that Banksy did. It went for a lot of money. And as soon as the gavel went down, there was a shredder built into this surprisingly large frame, and it shredded it. Now, here's my question. Did the bidder still have to buy it?
The bidder not only had to buy it, the bidder wound up with a bag of
shredded painting,
shredded stuff that was worth 10 times what he paid for the original piece of art, because it's a Banksy project.
It's more than
performance art.
It's performance art. It's more than just. Wait a minute. Let me see if I can show this being shredded. It's more than just a painting now. It's a shredding. This is actually them building the frame. And this is the auction at Sotheby's. There's the art. I have that Banksy painting on a magnet. Hasn't been shredded yet. Look at it going, man. The people are going crazy. Let's jump ahead. Oh, wait a minute. Wait. So there's the auctioneer. He lowered the gavel. People are going, oh my God, it's it's being shredded. They're taking it off the wall.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to move on here. Sorry for having your attention.
So I, my wish was, I wish they'd just gone one step further and made the paper or canvas or whatever it was on, made that like a, something with a half-life of 3 days or something. So you've got this bag of
have that burst into
shredded
flame.
paper, and then it either bursts into flame or it disintegrates into a pile of ashes or dust God. Or something. And basically it just comes down to when you're done with it, there's this little compressed thing, a little ball that you can squeeze into to make a diamond out of it.
The more you destroy it, the more it's worth.
Yeah, I wonder if this becomes a thing. It reminds me of those, the Buddhist monks that they work for.
Those mandalas, the sand mandalas.
Beautiful. They'll work for months, building those. Creating those, and they're just stunning. And then they get done, and they let everybody see it, and then 24 hours later, they just sweep it all up.
Yep.
They after they have hours and hours
and
of
to
work.
remind you of the impermanence of life. Here's an example.
Exactly.
Here's a beautiful sand mandala. They've made it, and they're all happy. Is that the Dalai Lama? I don't know.
Yes,
that is.
All monks look the same to me. And then, boom. It's just let's
sweep it all up.
Sweep it up. We need to get that
clearly
sand.
A llama and not
detachment.
a Shaolin Leo.
Yeah, that's detachment. All right. I spent a year of my life making this, and now I'm just gonna sweep it up.
Life is suffering.
Yeah. Wow.
There is no mirror. Where will it find dust?
Wow. Elon Musk, speaking of crazy, I don't. You could just pick any story, but this one's interesting. The first tunnel under LA will open on December 10th. The Boring Company is offering free rides to the public, according to, I don't know. It's Elon's Twitter. I don't know.
Was it fair? Was it overseen?
Yeah. I don't know where it goes. I don't know how it works, but it will be open December 10th. It's a 2-mile test tunnel under the SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Remember, he wants to make a public transportation system that basically...
This is the setup for a great Black Mirror episode.
I think it is.
People are getting on this thing, and then it goes into the tunnel,
and they never come out.
And they come out on Mars. Look, we've built the colony, and
Earth too.
there.
They come out on Earth too.
So glad you came. The plane, the tunnel. Pokemon Go will soon use Apple Health and Google Fit data to hatch eggs and earn candy just in the process of life itself. I know you're happy about that, Rene.
I am ecstatic. Not having to leave that stupid app open as I go for my morning walk is just looking forward to that.
I believe you owe me a gift, by the way.
I have to apologize to everybody because September and October is so crazy. I barely have time to play. So.
Yeah, you're too busy to play.
But I'll send you something, Leo.
You're missing the Halloween. You're missing the great Halloween event.
I got a 98% Giratina. I feel like I can just retire for the month.
Man. You're so cool. You're so cool. Much cooler than me.
I just have more free time on my hands.
And this is, okay, I shouldn't end on a down note, but this kind of depressed me. Breaker, which is a Bitcoin crypto site, sent emails to a bunch of other crypto sites saying, hey, basically posing, I'm representing a blockchain PR company from Moscow, and what I would like is for you to put coverage about my clients and have it not be marked sponsored. Is that possible? And of the 22 outlets who replied conclusively, 12 of them were willing to publish paid content without disclosing as such, which, by the way, is illegal according to the FTC. But who's going to catch you?
In this country.
In this country. And many of these aren't probably. And just a word of warning, we don't do paid content. But, I have to say, I get, and I'm sure you do too, solicitations every day from people who say, we'd like to put something on your blog.
Yeah.
My policy is I can never talk to you again. Once that happens, there's no way to avoid it. I can just never talk to you again in your capacity.
Yeah.
So if you want to move this from the downer category to the absurd category, a few months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, I changed my Twitter bio, and just for grins, I put in something there about blockchain, and it was and it was
you are a Twitter master, Ed. I must say,
just a dumb joke.
I
put
my
in
hat
there
to you.
I think the way it reads now is something like my blockchain can beat your blockchain or something like that. But within days after I changed that bio, I started getting, first of all, followers. Secondly, email solicitations and direct messages from people wanting to fly me to blockchain conferences, to offer exclusive stories about their blockchain product and everything. And so, this is
changing my bio right now.
It's just, you want, if Donald Trump was really upset this week because he lost 2,000 Twitter followers 2 days in a row. If he had just put blockchain in his bio, that problem would go away.
I had a similar thing this week. I got stuck on the YouTube homepage and I started getting tons of followers, and like 75% of them subscribed and then unsubscribed immediately. So I saw this huge spike and then this huge spike in unsubscribers, and it was very hard to take, Leo.
I feel bad. I'm missing all the fun. It's all happening. All right, I'm going to end with some upbeat stories. First, the Copyright Office has ruled that you have the right to repair thanks to Sorek. Jay Sorek is of Cydia iPhone jailbreaking fame. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, iFixit, Kyle Wiens and his attorney Cynthia Replogle, Cory Doctorow, Kit Walsh, and Mitch Stoltz from the Electronic Frontier Foundation, they filed a long brief. They went and they testified, 342 pages of background information. The final ruling released, and it's good news. The Copyright Office says you can now jailbreak Alexa-powered hardware and other similar gadgets. They call them voice assistant devices. You can unlock new phones, not just used ones. There's an exemption for repair of. This is because the DMCA says you can't reverse engineer copy protection. They need all these exemptions. There's an exemption for repair of smartphones, home appliances, or home systems. Repair of this is a huge one. Remember, John Deere doesn't let you repair your tractor. Repair of motorized land vehicles, including tractors, by modifying the software is now legal. This includes access to telematic diagnostic data, which was a major point of contention. And it's legal for third parties to perform repairs on the behalf of the owner. So this is a big change. Thank you, the Copyright Office.
Yay.
Yeah, that's a win.
It's a big win. They did try a little more. They wanted game console repairs to be legal on the PS4 and Xbox One. That is not going to happen. They also said that it has to be products that are smartphones, home appliances, or home systems, or motorized land vehicles. Boat and airplane owners, you still can't repair your boat and airplane. And Bunny Wong and the EFF wanted to bypass HDCP, the HDMI copy protection, and that was denied as well. But it's generally a win. And you know what? A lot of credit goes to this group of people from the EFF and iFixit who worked so hard. A team of students from Stanford's IP Law Clinic. They were fighting the MPAA, the RIAA, the Audio Alliance, John Deere, so many companies, and they won.
Good work.
Good work.
Good work.
So you see, we ended on a happy note.
Yes.
I'm going to try to shred my Banksy magnet. I don't think it'll work. And thank you guys for being here. When do you go to New York, Rene, Ritchie? Tomorrow?
Yes, sir. I leave tomorrow.
Have a great trip.
Thank you
I'll
so
be
much.
looking for you in the audience at the Berkeley Academy of Music Tuesday morning, bright and early. And we'll see you back on Mac Break Weekly a week from Tuesday. Thank you, Rene.
Awesome. I can't wait.
imore.com/vector for the Vector podcast. imore.com for everything Rene does. Thank you, Ed Bott. The Ed Bott report on ZDNet is a must-read. And now I know I have to find a way to follow you on Twitter, at Ed Bott, for all the fun and games. Have a wonderful evening, Ed. Thanks for being here.
Been my pleasure.
Always great to have you. And, of course, you too, Jason Hiner, editor-in-chief at Tech Republic, CBS Interactive. What do you have planned tonight? You're going to watch the World Series, or is there something going on? Anything going on? You got Kentucky basketball, anything?
No, probably a little bit of World Series. I'm Indiana University basketball, not Kentucky fan, even though I live in Louisville, Kentucky. But that's okay.
I know you
But I do want to put a plug in for, again, that series that I mentioned on Tech Republic, our 7-part series on election cybersecurity of the states and the stuff that they're doing. Great stuff from Allison Denisco and Macy Bayern. Great stuff there. And then for the IBM Red Hat stuff, for those who are interested in learning more about the implications, Tech Republic and ZDNet will have it covered from every angle this week. So we have lots of smart people that will have good coverage there.
You're doing a lot of security focus these days, which is really excellent. I'm very grateful to you for that. Yeah.
Awesome.
TechRepublic.com.
Thanks, Leo.
We do This Week in Tech every Sunday afternoon, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 2200 UTC. I hope you'll come by and watch us do it live. You can do it in a couple of ways. You can be in studio. We had a great studio audience. Thank you. All you have to do is email tickets@twit.tv. We'll put a chair out for you if you're going to be in the Petaluma area on a Sunday afternoon. You can also watch our live stream anywhere in the world, twit.tv/live. If you do that, join us in the chat room. All the other people watching live are there. irc.twit.tv. Most of our audience listens at their leisure on demand. We make on-demand versions of all of our shows available, audio or video, at twit.tv. Better yet, subscribe in your favorite podcast application so you get the episodes the minute they're available. You know how to do that. And don't forget, you can always ask your voice assistant, typically something like Echo, listen to This Week in Tech podcast, and you'll be able to listen to the latest episode. A very easy way to listen. Thanks for watching, listening, being here. We'll see you next time. Another Twit is in the can.